The story begins with the introduction of our central character, a man named Sony. From the very beginning, it is made clear that he lives and breathes racing. Driving is not just a hobby for him. It is his passion, his lifeline, something that defines who he is. The film opens inside a massive indoor arena, where an electrifying atmosphere takes over the crowd. Bright lights, roaring engines, and flashing digital scoreboards set the tone. A competitive race is underway, and Sony is at the center of it. He is fully focused behind the wheel, gripping the steering tightly, his eyes sharp, his breathing steady. His car moves with precision, weaving through obstacles, overtaking one competitor after another. The crowd is screaming his name, but Sony doesn't care about attention or popularity. All that matters to him is the thrill of the race. As the race continues, opponents start targeting him. They try blocking his path, cutting corners dangerously, and pushing him to the edge of the track. But Sony's determination is unmatched. With clever maneuvers, quick reflexes, and sheer willpower, he overtakes them one by one. Soon, only one rival remains in front of him, someone who gives him a tough fight. For several minutes, the two cars stay neck and neck, fighting for the lead position. The pressure builds, the crowd grows louder, and the tension rises with every turn. Finally, Sony takes a risky but calculated move. He collides slightly with the rival's car, destabilizing it, and then surges ahead. His car storms forward, dominating lap after lap, collecting points for his team. By the end of the match, his performance secures victory for his entire team. The stadium erupts in celebration. His teammates cheer, the audience chants his name, and the trophy is brought out. But to everyone's surprise, Sony shows no interest in the award. Fame, glory, recognition, none of this attracts him. He quietly congratulates his friends, waves goodbye, and walks away, leaving the victory celebration behind. This simple action reflects the essence of his character. He races not for fame, but for the pure love of driving. Later, we see Sony walking down the street until he stops at a local laundry shop. While waiting, his eyes fall on a colorful poster pasted on the wall. It advertises an upcoming desert race in Mexico and mentions that a professional driver is needed. Sony reads it silently, his mind processing the opportunity. For a moment, it looks like he is considering it, but then he shrugs it off and ignores it. To him, life is not about chasing fame through big races. It's about racing for his own heart. Just then, an old acquaintance approaches him. It is the race manager, a man Sony has known for years but hasn't met in a long time. They greet each other warmly, catching up on lost time. Soon, the manager reveals the purpose of his visit. He owns a Formula One team, but his team is struggling badly. They are unable to even qualify in the top 10 positions. Investors are losing faith, the team is falling apart, and he fears complete ruin if things continue like this. Looking at Sony, he says desperately, "You were once a Formula One driver, one of the best. I need you back. If you drive for my team, I know we have a chance to survive." Sony listens silently. He does not give an immediate answer, but promises to think about it. Meanwhile, we are introduced to another driver named JP, who is already a part of the same struggling team. JP is talented but frustrated. His car often malfunctions, and he feels unsupported. A young, skilled car designer works with the team, constantly asking JP about mechanical issues so she can improve the design. JP complains that the car has multiple problems holding him back. Determined, the designer begins reworking the flaws, aiming to make the car competitive again. Soon after, Sony arrives at the team's workshop. Some people recognize him with awe, remembering his legendary past, while others, especially the younger members, don't know who he is. The race manager, however, feels hopeful again after seeing Sony walk in. Sony inspects the team's cars and decides to test one. Despite being older models compared to what he drove in his prime, and even more modern than what he's used to, Sony adapts quickly. He pushes the car on the track, testing its limits. But during a sharp turn, the car crashes. Luckily, Sony escapes unharmed. Analyzing the issue, he calmly explains that the car doesn't turn well at high speeds, causing it to crash. The car designer takes note of his observations, promising to work on improvements. On the other side of the story, JP is shown at home with his mother. He confesses his struggles, his team keeps losing, his position feels threatened, and now a new driver has arrived who could replace him. He worries about his future, but his mother comforts him, urging him to stay strong and focus on his own skills instead of fearing competition. The film now establishes the team dynamics. Like most Formula One teams, they have two drivers, a number one and a number two. JP is the lead driver, while Sony becomes the second driver. Both are expected to work together strategically. In a press conference before the next race, tension rises. JP mocks Sony, calling him an old man in front of reporters. Sony, calm and collected, doesn't react. But the journalists dig deeper into Sony's past, asking about the horrific accident that forced him out of racing 30 years ago. The painful memory overwhelms him, and he quietly leaves the press event, haunted by his past. That night, he reflects alone, remembering the terrible accident that nearly ended his life and his dreams. The next morning, JP approaches Sony to apologize for insulting him. Though he admits his mistake, Sony brushes it off. He doesn't hold grudges. His focus remains on practicing and improving. Soon, race day arrives. The tournament is spread over 3 days. Friday is the initial race, Saturday is the qualifying round, and Sunday hosts the championship race. The better a driver performs early on, the better their starting position will be in the final event. The race begins. In the first round, Sony's car starts in the last position. Both Sony and JP fight hard against competitors. Pit stops for tire and part changes cost them precious seconds, which in Formula One can mean everything. At one point, both cars end up leading the race, but instead of working together, Sony and JP begin competing with each other. Their rivalry grows heated until it causes disaster. Their cars collide and crash out of the track, eliminating both of them from the race. Furious, JP blames Sony, shouting that as the second driver, Sony should have let him pass. The team owners scold Sony, reminding him that racing is about teamwork, not ego. Sony is deeply affected by the criticism. In frustration, he spends time alone in the garage, submerging himself in cold water to calm down. The race manager confronts him, angry that his car has been destroyed and worried about losing everything. Sony assures him that JP still has much to learn and tries to lighten the mood with humor, even joking about his interest in the car designer. The manager dismisses it sternly, saying personal distractions won't be tolerated. Later, Sony meets the car designer privately at a coffee shop. He asks her to consider redesigning the car more radically. She refuses, explaining that teamwork is essential and she cannot make such decisions alone. She also reminds him that everyone is curious about why he returned to Formula One after decades. She leaves, saying that if he wants her respect, he must first prove himself on the track. As the team prepares for the next big race of 52 laps, they strategize carefully. This time, Sony insists on using soft tires, which provide greater speed but wear out quickly. After heated debate, the team agrees. With teamwork, they finally manage to qualify in the top 10. A huge achievement for a team that had always been at the bottom. That night, the car designer opens up to Sony, revealing her own struggles. She explains how her husband once dismissed her ideas, leading to the failure of her marriage. Her desire to succeed in racing is personal. She wants to prove her worth. The next qualifying race begins. JP maintains his position in the top 10, while Sony defends fiercely, blocking opponents and supporting the team. Slowly, their combined efforts push the team into fourth place. Excitement builds as JP's car eventually reaches first place. But while taking a risky turn, his car overturns, crashes violently, and bursts into flames. Sony immediately stops, rushes to him, and saves him from the fire. Though JP survives, he suffers a hand injury that prevents him from racing further. In the aftermath, JP's mother angrily confronts Sony, blaming him for pushing her son into dangerous speeds. Though Sony explains that he had warned JP to slow down, he still apologizes out of respect. The team falls into despair, worried about their chances. But Sony assures them that victory is still possible. He believes that with proper coordination, they can win. With JP injured, Sony takes sole responsibility for the upcoming races. He pushes himself beyond limits, qualifying the team within the top 9 repeatedly. JP later recovers and returns, but once again the rivalry between him and Sony sparks during a race. At one point, JP even collides with Sony, knocking him out, which leads to another heated argument. Sony scolds JP for being selfish and ignoring the team's needs. Their conflict threatens to tear the team apart. The car designer intervenes, calling both men together. She explains that their infighting will only destroy the team. To ease tension, she makes them play cards with her, encouraging them to spend time together. For a while, the atmosphere lightens. But when JP leaves, Sony and the designer grow closer, slowly developing feelings for each other. That night, she asks him why he truly returned to racing. Finally, Sony opens up about his past accident. He explains how it shattered his dreams, broke his bones, damaged his spine, and forced him to abandon racing for decades. Yet deep inside, his passion for driving never died, and he returned to prove himself again. Just then, the race manager enters, warning them that organizers suspect their cars of being illegally modified. They demand to seize the cars for inspection. The team shows documents proving compliance, but the stress creates further tension. And so, the stage is set for the third qualifying race. 20 years later, Joy is no longer a child. She has grown into a quiet young woman, whose eyes still carry the scars of her past. Her parents are gone now, but the silence of the house reminds her every day of what she lived through. Instead of sitting at the window all day, Joy forces herself to face the outside world. She works in a small office as an accountant. Her life has become routine, office, home, and long hours of loneliness. One morning, a new colleague joins the office. His name is Arjun. Unlike Joy, he is lively, warm, and full of humor. Everyone is drawn to him, and slowly, he becomes the center of the office. But Arjun notices Joy. He sees how she sits quietly, keeping herself apart from the rest. One afternoon, he gently asks her, "Why do you always stare out of the window, Joy? Sometimes happiness isn't out there, it's right here, if you allow yourself to see it." At first, Joy doesn't know what to say, but his words begin to echo inside her. Slowly, she starts changing. She smiles more often, joins conversations at work, and feels a little less invisible each day. Evenings become different too. Joy and Arjun share tea after work, talking about small things, laughing at little jokes. For the first time in her life, Joy begins to trust someone with her silence. One evening, she tells Arjun the truth. She speaks about her childhood, about how her parents' fights pushed her toward the window, how that place became her shelter from the storm. Arjun listens without interruption. Then he smiles softly and says, "Maybe it's time to step away from that window. You don't need it anymore, because now you have someone who won't let you fall." Tears fill Joy's eyes. For the first time, she feels something new, hope. A small light flickers inside her heart, telling her that her life doesn't have to remain in shadows forever.